Okay, you can find out everything your ladies are doing on www.andwethought.com. But
Or
y'all,
if you need an
yes,
abbreviated version, it's www.andithoughladies.com. But y'all aren't here to hear about us.
you're here to hear from our wonderful guest. Wonderful guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Amy Long. I wrote a book called Codependence about my past recreational drug use and current opioid use for chronic pain and other stuff, but mostly the opioids. Um, is this when I do the three things?
Yes,
Yes.
this is exactly what you do the thing.
Let's see. Okay. One thing, I'm a triplet. Um, so my sisters obviously have pseudonyms. Let's see. Uh, why can't I think of
Coffee?
anything? Let's see. The last book I finished was Justine by Forsyth Harmon. Oh, and I run the Taylor Swiftest Books account on Instagram, which is really fun.
That is really, really cool. So what made you want to run the Taylor Swift books on Instagram?
I mean, I love Taylor Swift,
Mhm.
but not everyone does. But I used to make them for my friends, like you match her outfits with their book or whatever, and I had fun doing it. And I was like, hey, wait, if I did this, I would never have to pitch a review or an interview, and I can help promote small press books, mostly that like maybe people wouldn't see if they didn't have Taylor Swift next to them. So we've broken into the Swiftie audience a little bit.
Nice.
I use an editorial we. It's just me, but it's really fun, and it's just kind of like it's just a more fun way to be a good literary citizen.
Yeah, and that sounds like a really super fun way to do that.
And I'm not gonna lie, that's how I actually found out about you in the first place.
Yes.
Because somebody book that we had just interviewed, they were like, I'm on this, and I was like, what is this? And then I was like, oh, this is cool. And I was like, who thought of this?
Yeah.
And then
they've got to come by the cave. Yeah. They got to come by the cave. Like, we got to talk to the person that does this.
Because that's insanely gorgeous. I mean, literally, it's like the outfit to the book cover is almost seamless. And then you're like, oh, this really worked.
Yeah, it did. It did. Like, it was super amazing. So let's talk about your book a little bit. And why did you feel like you should write a memoir? It seems like a little bit.
Well, it started out, I was going to make it into a novel, so that 18-year-old me had like a clearer motivation for dating this, we don't say addict anymore, but dating someone with a substance use disorder. When I had never used drugs in my life, so it didn't make any sense. I just did it. All of a sudden, I was just like, so I started out writing it as a novel, and I would meet David, the guy, in college, and that would be like, more sensible. If the timeline would make more sense, but it was really, really boring. So, and I was taking a CNF workshop, or creative nonfiction workshop, with Matthew Balmer, and we were writing in like dictionary, glossary entries, lists, hermit crab forms mostly. And I just loved it, and everything came out so easily. And we had, for our final projects, we did 3D objects that incorporated writing somehow. So I bought a medicine cabinet and I had tons of pill bottles, because I always save my pill bottles, because I'm afraid that someone either is going to ask me, were you on this in 2011? I'll be like, yep, I've got the bottle to prove it. Or like, were you like something, I don't want to throw them away because someone could go through my trash and follow me, or, because every month I get, not as much as I did when I was writing the book, but I get a pretty high street value of oxycodone. So I had a medicine cabinet that narrated my drug history, and I rolled up little stories in pill bottles and stuff like that. Made like a hotel key. The motel keys ended up in the book exactly, a little bit edited, but almost exactly the way they were in the medicine cabinet. And so that was like my outline. And I mean, I think of it as an essay collection or maybe a memoir in essays, because there's this connotation to memoir for me that like it's kind of that like I was this bad thing happened, all of this happened, and I got better, and here's what I learned. And I really didn't want to do that, in part because chronic pain does not, you don't get better. That's the point of chronic pain. It keeps going, you know. And it just didn't feel, I mean, I'm not a hopeful person. I didn't learn anything, you know, like I'm not, yeah, I felt like I was maybe one of the few people who had this story of like, you know, one time I used to do like the drugs I take now as medication, I used to do for fun, you know? So I felt like it was a story that no one else could quite tell, and that it would hopefully kind of subvert that opioid narrative. Like you go to the doctor gives you Vicodin, all of a sudden you're addicted, you know? Like I knew what I was getting into when I started taking narcotics because I had, you know, I'd seen it before. I'd been with my ex to doctor shop and stuff. I think I mean, I guess it's a memoir, or, you know, a memoir and essays or whatever, because that was just the way it came out. I guess that's just sort of like what it wanted to be. And probably I also thought it was so weirdly specific that as fiction, it might be unbelievable.
Oh, we heard that before.
I've heard that before, and somebody, we wrote something in a book, and they were like, "That's unbelievable. That never happened." And I was like, "Actually, that really happened to me." And they were like, "You're lying. Why would I lie about that?" Oh, it was a banking error. So something happened, and like anyway, I just kept getting banking errors for about 5 months of my life. Like I would either put money in and then it would disappear, or I wouldn't put money in and I'd have like $20,000 the next day. And then like, I think they were just mixing up my name with someone else's, and so it was like just
that episode of Friends when Phoebe gets like some huge amount of money in her bank account and then she wants to give it back to the bank. Go on, sorry.
Yeah. So I mean that's exactly what happened, and they were like, nobody would be doing that for 5 months, and I was like, actually, I did. I lived with banking errors for 5 months. Like I was, they'll work it out. They'll work it out, and they did. They finally went. I mean, after like going in for 5 months, like, look, here's the receipts, here's the things, and then like they put it back, or they like moved the money out of my account.
Oh, too bad they didn't let you keep the money.
Right? But it wasn't mine.
I mean, they're bad.
And it wasn't mine though, and I'm sure whoever saved like $20,000 really needed it. You know, like that's a lot of saving.
Yeah, very true. So you all, not only do you write, you also did work in editing, and you have some degrees in this area as well. Can you tell us a bit about those two subjects?
Yeah, I have a degree in women's studies. I did my undergrad as English and women's studies, and I sort of thought I was going to be a professor. But so I got a master's in women's studies, mostly because I started college as a junior, because I'd done my first 2 years in high school. So I was like, you know, I've only been here 2 years. I'm like 21 and I look like I'm 13. No one's going to give me a job, you know? Or like, I just kind of felt like I hadn't like been there long enough and gotten a good enough education. And so I went with the master's. And then I worked for nonprofits I worked for the ACLU's now defunct, unfortunately, Drug Law Reform Project. And then this is 2008, like right when the recession hit. And so I had written my thesis on drug dealing narratives and the figure of the drug dealer and what happens when you move I have like an overview from like the 1400s to the 90s or early 2000s. And then the next chapters were The Wire and Weeds. And the argument was like, you know, in these shows, like, actually now I don't really remember the argument. Something about that, like that serialized TV made it easier to sort of avoid that, like, the bad guy gets it narrative, and it could make it more complex. And my my thesis was, I think that Weeds was the more revolutionary text, because Nancy always gets, like, when she deals drugs and it gives her freedom, whereas in most narratives you're dealing drugs because, and it's like limiting you or making you, like, but for her it's like empowering. So I felt like, I think that having written about The Wire was what got me the interview and the Drug Law Reform Project, and I loved it. It was my favorite job. And then I got laid off, and so I got a job in DC about 8 months later, and I was there for 2 months and I got laid off. And then I got a job in New York and I stayed there for like 3 years, and I hadn't been writing. Like, I've written since I was a little kid. Like, I don't remember when I started writing. And I kind of quit in college because I didn't want to show it to anyone. But I was just kind of miserable. And I just had this thought, like, remember when you wrote and you were happy? And so I wrote something and I immediately read it at Word, which is weird. And I wasn't nervous at all. I don't know what I was thinking. And then I took some workshops with Amy Shern and Emma Strout at NYU and Sackett Street, like night classes. And then I applied to 21 MFA programs. And I went to, Emma told me that if I applied to at least 20, I would definitely get into one. So I did. And so I went to Virginia Tech, and I mean, I loved it. That program is criminally underrated. Like, I can't say enough things about my advisor, Matthew Ballmer. Like, I mean, he's just amazing, and like, was so excited about my project. And if I had gone somewhere else, I really don't know what I would have, like, ended up doing,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then after the MFA, I moved to Texas I moved to Austin in a poor decision. It's a long story that's for the next book. But it was just so bad. Then I moved back to Florida. That's where I am now. And mostly I dog sit and freelance edit, but mostly I dog sit.
Nice. Like, so where can people check out your book and definitely follow you on Instagram?
Where can people?
Yeah, find your book, and then where can people follow you on Instagram?
The book is, my Instagram is Amy Lorraine Long.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get the book from the press, Cleveland State University Poetry Center. You can get it from Book People, where I worked in Austin. From the press, obviously. And obviously it's on Amazon and stuff, but I generally don't plug Amazon. It's kind of hard to search for. So you really have to do, like, Amy Long codependence essays. That's your Google.
All right.
Nice. Thank you so much. So everyone, please check out her book. Follow her on Instagram. That would be fabulous.
Enjoy the Swift book compilation.
You're gonna mess it. You're gonna
mess it up.
So I was like, why did she start?
Mm-hmm.
Why did she start? Come on.
I had to start because it was the Swift thing that I found her off of. Anyway, moving on. Jade, would you like to wrap us up?
Yes, I will. You can find out everything your ladies are doing on www.andwethought.com. While you're there, take a moment, go to the ladies tab, go down to the middle and see the charities that we probably support. Or you can find all of this information where, Winona?
Abbreviated at www.andithoughladies.com, or everything that we're doing
at www.andwethought.com. Right? And remember, y'all, wisdom is all around you.
You're open to finding it and loving it. So peace and love, you guys.
And loving it and accepting it. Wow.
Loving it, accepting it.
Wow, Winona.
I love loving it. Loving the advice that you get and then accepting.
Oh my goodness. All right. So peace and love, y'all. From Jade.
and Winona. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Thanks for listening.